The protagonist begins her podcast by welcoming her audience while announcing the launch of a fresh series. She also reveals that Hal, is graduating as an idol today. Half a year later, a boy tunes into the broadcast as Jack's Banana Bonanza starts. The host then expresses gratitude to the listeners. He attempts to speak, but Taniguchi arrives and switches off the radio, claiming it's outdated. Taiyu shouts at him and threatens to shake his head. Stunned by his reaction, he glances at the stickers and questions whether he's into idols. Taiyu jumps and denies, explaining he used to tune in back then. He asks if those are the stickers received after sending content to the radio. He explains that she adores the radio, which inspired him to contribute to her program. Recently, she mentioned her love for pink, so he asked if she was wearing pink underwear. Taniguchi questions whether that counts as harassment, but adds that submitting boring things would be worse. He's shocked when he notes Okanaji-san, addressing him as Kimishima-kun. She stares at them with sorrow before asking if he's finished. She then points to the no posting sign, explaining he needs approval to use the board, and their teacher, Oda-sensei, summoned them to the staff room after school. She wishes them luck with their task and rushes off, leaving them stunned. Taiyu blushes after hearing her encouragement and asks Taniguchi if she might enjoy radio or maybe like him. Taniguchi denies. Taiyu then rips the poster down and flings it upward, annoyed about the permission. He lies down, using his arms as a cushion, and mumbles that the radio fest will be exciting, but wonders why no one else seems thrilled. The scene shifts to the ticket booth where Taiyu adjusts his cap, confident about his timing. He mutters to himself at the counter that he should concentrate on Jack's stage while considering the limited access passes. As he walks off, he's stunned to see his cap soaring in the air. He attempts to retrieve it but fails, and it lands near someone's foot. He picks it up, spotting pink underwear. The girl hears his reaction and immediately slaps him. Frustrated, she blurts out that she's already apologized, and since he saw her panties, they're even. He replies calmly that the slap didn't really bother him. She begins inspecting his entire profile, suddenly notices her own stickers, and asks if he's familiar with her. He confirms. She giggles with a red face and asks if he's attending Radifest, then invites him to go together. He stares at her in disbelief, musing if she's a listener, then correcting himself by noting that she resembles one. He feels reassured, thinking Taniguchi was wrong. Radio fans do exist. He tries recalling her face, which seems familiar. Upon arrival, both are astonished by Radifest. She tells him about the opening act. He guesses they might be able to enter without trouble. Inside, they both enjoy and applaud the performers while sipping drinks. After the event, she praises the show and notes that the guy spoke impressively without any script prep. She admits she didn't expect their seats to be side by side. Hal asks if he has other plans and invites him to hang out. He looks surprised, then quickly agrees. At a diner, Taiyu reflects on how enjoyable it feels, almost like a date, and notes how adorable she is. He quietly contemplates how he was somewhat drawn to her from the beginning. He then fantasizes about her confessing, "I love you," and starts envisioning a future with her. She interrupts his imaginary scene and, catching his attention, questions if the stickers are from Spring Love Radio. She then asks if he has a crush on Hal. He denies, claiming he doesn't even like her and is content just being a fan. She presses him on why he listened to her show. He explains that it wasn't particularly good, so he tried to energize it by sending messages, and maybe the staff helped frame those responses to make it seem more engaging, which led to its popularity. He stares at the food while she asks what radio name he used before. Laughing, he replies that it was Def Fucom Master, adding he's not even fond of sweets. Without warning, she shoves food into his mouth and snaps that he should survive on corn dogs forever. She then mocks his earlier comment while continuing to feed him. She brings up how his on-air questions humiliated her. She shares that when she showed discomfort responding, people labeled her as unskilled and amateur. He attempts to say something, but is muffled by the corn dog in his mouth. Suddenly, she hits him. He begins sweating, thinking to himself that he's a fool for not realizing her identity earlier. She curses herself for misjudging him. She admits she never imagined he could be this way, that he genuinely believed his dumb messages could shape the show's direction. Taiyu grows irritated by her criticism. He manages to remove the corn dog and retaliates, claiming the show was boring because of her, and she should have written a better script. She yells back, saying she gave it her all and even received praise from the staff. He mocks her, saying she's lost it and is obsessed with herself. He adds, while provoking her further, that he never expected her personality to be like this. She listens in silence, then abruptly slaps him hard across the face, declaring he'll never understand what it meant to her. Without another word, she walks away, clutching her purse, while he silently watches her leave. Soon she stumbles and collapses. Taiyu, alarmed, checks if she's okay. She responds coldly, then faints on the spot. He wonders if she's pretending. In her mind, she recalls hosting her broadcast, reading the audience, announcing the next program, frowning at the name Fuka Master, and scanning a sheet filled with ridiculous questions. Thinking about them, she thanks the listeners, noting that Master's odd behavior influenced Spring Love's audience to become inappropriate. In a memory, Hal stands with a cup of coffee, observing two people conversing nearby. One turns to her, asking if she's pushing herself too hard. She answers she's fine, pretending it's fun to reveal her true self. She mentions Fuka Master gave her energy, and she feels grateful for it. In the present, Hal opens her eyes. Taiyu stands next to her hospital bed, informing her she had a heat stroke and is now well enough to leave. She asks about the time and realizes the show must have ended. He responds that nothing can be done now. She reflects on his kindness. He hands her a keychain, mentioning that due to lack of time, it's the only thing he could get. They leave the hospital together. He apologizes for earlier. She responds that it's all right. As he turns to leave, he asks if they'll meet again. She stops him with a wide smile and credits him for Spring Love's success. Surprised, he asks if her earlier words were false. She avoids answering, repeats her thanks, and confirms that's all she wanted to express. Calling herself Haru Manaka, she adds that she still dislikes him, and those are the words of Hal the idol. He stares, puzzled, as she tells him not to misinterpret her appreciation. She runs off, waving goodbye. He watches in amazement, noticing the gift he gave attached to her purse. Blushing, he recalls what he said and feels regret. He admires her smile, thinking she was truly rare. At his apartment, he's greeted upon arrival. Still lost in thought about her, he reflects that they'll never see each other again. His father calls for help while handing him a toaster. Taiyu asks if everything's all right. His father explains that someone he might recognize is coming to live in the apartment next to them, and they're preparing for her arrival. Taiyu, confused, asks if he's serious and hears a noise. While expecting things to return to normal, he turns. At the entrance, Hal stands, confused. His mother encourages her not to be shy. She tries to speak nervously, but Taiyu interrupts, calling her the hysterically violent idol. The next day at school, the teacher asks Hal to introduce herself. She expresses gratitude and introduces herself as Haru Manaka. The class reacts with excitement, wondering if she's the idol Hal. She adds that she hopes to get to know everyone. Taiyu watches, clearly irritated. Taiyu ponders about Haru, a former idol, and the heated debate they had over some old messages. He was convinced they had said their final goodbyes, but here he is, standing at her doorstep. With a begrudging tone, he informs her that his mom wants them to have breakfast together. She, still groggy, asks who it is. Noticing his stare, she catches his eyes on her body and snaps, saying she'll be out in a minute, slamming the door and leaving him stunned. At the dining table, his mother offers Hal a second helping of fish. Taiyu makes a remark about her messy appearance. She replies that everyone at home looks like this in the morning. She asks if he listened to the radio. He answers that it was dull as usual, the script was terrible, and he wasn't in the right mindset last night, so he'll try again later. Hal bursts out, furious, accusing him of not even bothering to listen and tells him to stop talking to her. In frustration, he bangs the table, telling her not to cross the line. She mocks him, saying even someone like him can fall asleep at night. She adds that instead of supporting her radio show, he chose to send content to a rookie idol's program. He tries to snap back but stops, reflecting on her complicated attitude and questions why she even came to stay at his house. His mother then explains her backstory, revealing that Hal's father personally asked her to take care of his daughter. At school, when they arrive, the class buzzes with talk about Hal. Hearing compliments and admiration for her popularity, Taiyu grows annoyed. He calls Taniguchi as the girls continue chatting about Hal. Suddenly, Taiyu gets an idea and tells Taniguchi it's time to act. Energized, he steps away from the crowd. The school speaker system activates, announcing that the Radio Studies Club is actively recruiting new members. Taiyu's voice follows, inviting all radio fans and others to join. Hal hears the broadcast and suspects it's Kimishima. He continues, encouraging students to see him if they're interested. He adds that Hal's radio stickers from her idol era will be given to those who sign up for the club. Before he can finish, a teacher storms in, furious, while Taiyu is still broadcasting. As the teacher scolds him, the class listens in awkward silence. Hal, frustrated, calls him a troublemaker, while the girls criticize his speech as cringeworthy. Someone warns her to stay away from Kimishima, adding that no one cares about radio anymore. The girls mock it as outdated. Hal watches them, eyes wide with confusion. Later, Taiyu exits the staff room with Okanoji. He complains that Oda's lectures drag on. She admits she was nervous. He apologizes for involving her. She responds it's fine. She is the class rep. Suddenly, he asks if she listens to the radio. She says not really, the voices sound strange. That's not good, he replies. She looks at him, puzzled. He starts recommending beginner-friendly stations. The bell rings. She quietly reflects on the idea of radio. The scene shifts. Taiyu turns on the night show hosted by Jasmine. 1 hour passes. He's still at his desk, tuned in. After 2 hours, he remains engrossed. Hal suddenly appears, telling him to quit since it's pointless. He remarks that it's her again. She teases him, saying it's indeed her, and jokes about how unpopular both he and his radio are. He checks the time, asking if she really waited just to say that. She deflects, then asks for directions home. He chuckles, teasing her for waiting 2 hours and questions if she's mocking him. She flares up. He wonders if she secretly likes the radio and considers asking her to join the radio studies club. She responds to his thoughts as if reading his mind, firmly saying never. When he denies saying anything, she replies that his face shows subtitles. He changes tone, stating he wouldn't care if she didn't get home, and demands attention. She taunts him, saying he looks like a criminal who should be arrested. Then she asks if a radio club is really needed. He, irritated, says yes. He explains that people have varied reasons for loving radio, many being gloomy, antisocial, or lonely. She tells him he's bothering her. Then he opens up, saying he was in the same place. He stopped going to school in 8th grade and found solace in the radio. She didn't expect this. Trying to stress the educational value of radio, he only irritates her. He goes on to say radio lovers often have awkward voices and that he wanted a safe space for such people, and backtracks, saying maybe such a place isn't necessary now. Standing up, he offers to walk her home. She ignores the offer and instead tells him not to give up. He's confused by her changing attitude. She tells him to pursue the club. He complains she wasn't supportive at first. She snaps, saying she can't help with the club anymore. Then she declares she'll show him how it's done. The following day, Haru eagerly requests the key, prompting Taiyu to urge her to hurry before he gets scolded. Undeterred, she confidently strides into the room, flicks on the school announcer, introduces herself, and reveals that she's there to back up Taiyu at his request. The class starts whispering. She hesitates, then expresses her love for radio. She shares how radio, being only audio, sparks imagination, no judgments, just voices. She urges everyone to give radio one last try, promising they'll find something they like. She ends the speech and turns off the mic. Taiyu stands, stunned. She asks for his thoughts. He thinks her words were on a different level, and maybe living next to her isn't such a bad thing after all. She smiles, saying he needs to be more approachable to attract people. He agrees, going quiet. Then he mutters that he thought she was amazing. But now not so much. She reacts startled and tells him to keep quiet about it. A sudden commotion breaks out as students pound on the door. Once inside, they behave wildly, eager for tickets. Taiyu tries to control the chaos. The crowd chants Hal's name, praising her. She suddenly blurts that she's not an official club member. Silence follows. Taiyu flares up, asking why she said that. She answers it's the truth. She was only an example, and even if many join now, they'll eventually quit. She adds, further aggravating him, that she never agreed to join the club. He explodes, calling her a manipulative idol. In retaliation, she grabs his collar and shakes him. They freeze as Okanoji walks in. She asks if the class rep came for the radio club. She quickly apologizes and delivers a message from Miss Oda. The radio studies club has been suspended. Both Taiyu and Hal stand there, stunned. The scene transitions to Okanoji-san, who's sitting with a mic in front of her. She begins by greeting the listeners and introducing herself as Mai. She mentions that it is DJ's Anything Consultation Corner and that she will be solving all their problems. She looks at the paper and reads that it is from a person named the Sea-Hating Squid. She laughs at her own comment, then reads the listener's issue, stating there's this boy in her class catching her eye, and it seems like he's getting cozy with a transfer student. She's worried about whether she should approach him or not. Well, Okanoji flashes a smile and reassures her that they're not an item, so she shouldn't hesitate to strike up a conversation with him. She then bids farewell and stops the recording. She sighs that a solo radio show is good. She checks her program status. She heads down, wondering that she can't bring herself the courage to say it. At the school staff room, Miss Oda states that it's not like the radio club is disbanded. Taiyu and Hal both look at her with confusion. She further mentions that maybe he is calling it the Radio Studies Club, but the school doesn't even call it a club, and still they had the audacity to occupy an open club room and continue without permission. She states that the problem was heading ahead and she was getting complaints, and as a result of the staff meeting it was decided to cancel their club activities. Hal tells him that it's all his fault. He yells, wondering why everyone is against the radio. She replies to him that she predicted it before and asks him to listen to her. She asks Miss Oda if it really needs to be recognized as an official club. She replies that they need to prepare well, and they need at least 3 persons to sign an application and submit it to the student council, and it's the first step. They both leave. Hall shows him the application paper and tells him that it won't be hard to gather 3 people. He tells her that he will grab anyone and make them sign the form. She tells him that it's impossible and he doesn't have to do that, and she is sure they made their motives obvious during the last broadcast. He will only find 1 or 2 people to join. Suddenly, Okanoji passes by, and she calls out to her. Okanoji freezes, clearly hesitant. Haru steps forward and greets her. She bows in return and introduces herself, saying it's nice to meet her. The two look at her, confused. Hal asks why she's there, causing her to falter even more. Then she asks if she's interested in the radio. Okanoji hesitates, then quietly admits that she is. Taiyu shouts and asks why she didn't tell him earlier, and what she listens to. She further hesitates and tells him that he wouldn't know. Soon she mentions that it's an online platform. He asks her if it's from AY. Hal asks him about a personal broadcast. He explains to her that a personal broadcast is mostly for smaller communities. Nowadays there are many apps, and anyone can get started. Hal is amazed, as she had no idea. He further asks Okanoji what she listens to. Soon he asks if it's cultural content. She stays quiet. Her lips tremble as she says it's DJ May Mai's. He inquires if it's the Anything Consultation Corner. He gets excited and tells her it's the only internet radio show he listens to. Hal asks if it's famous. He denies it. She looks at him with a sweaty face. She asks if May Mai submits her own problems and answers them. He agrees. He adds that the show is pretty painful, but he loves May Mai's voice. This sentence takes Okanoji's breath away. She asks if he listened to the latest episode as well. He chuckles, mentioning what the girl should do. Hal looks at them sideways. Okanoji blushes, asking if he heard all that. Suddenly, she runs away embarrassed. They both get shocked. Hal rudely asks if he is also sexually harassing that girl. He yells at her and denies the statement. Okanoji wonders with disbelief that Kimishima-kun listened to all her broadcasts. In the classroom, students discuss the office of class representative. Suddenly, a girl raises her hand and suggests Okanoji should do it. Okanoji looks at her in disbelief. The students comment on her personality, calling her an introvert. Sensei asks if she is ready for it. She responds fearfully, asking why, insisting she never would. Taiyu raises his hand, volunteering. Everyone confronts him, saying he can't do it. He asks why, recalling they said anyone can do it. They reply that anyone can, but not him. Okanoji is labeled class representative. Taiyu Kimishima, errand boy. In the hallway, he yells about the errand boy position. Instead of replying, she thanks him. He's startled and asks if she said anything. She denies it. He urges her to speak, praising her cute voice. She asks what to say. Suddenly, her papers drop. She wonders how she's become more aware of him since then. In the present, Hal and Taiyu spot Okanoji and give her a cheerful morning greeting. However, she swiftly bolts, leaving them bewildered. The next day, Taiyu tries to schedule a clubroom meeting with Okanoji, who claims to be swamped with tasks. On day 3, Taiyu tries to discuss Mai Mai with her, only for Okanoji to evade yet again. Finally, on day 4, she mysteriously disappears. In a sudden twist, Hal overhears some girls labeling Taiyu as a stalker. Curious, she approaches him and requests for a chat. Outside class, she flares up, calls him a stalker, and pushes him to the stairs. He asks if she's in the mood for a fight. She tells him to calm down, saying it's public opinion. She mentions trying to listen to Okanoji's program and praises her radio voice. She hints at something. He questions what she means. She says Okanoji's broadcasts are based on real-life experiences. He wonders what that implies. She tells him to listen repeatedly and informs him she is going to see Okanoji. According to her, the one who should properly talk with Okanoji is Taiyu. If she does, things might get complicated. Hal approaches Okanoji, who looks at her with wide eyes. Next, she informs Taiyu of her arrival outside the clubroom. He first is startled but then excited, saying DJ Mai Mai Anything Goes Consultation Corner. She looks at him in disbelief. He chuckles on the mic, announcing that today she is on break and he, Dafuka Master, is here in her place. For today's consultation, it's the same girl as yesterday, the sea-hating squid. He urges Okanoji to go ahead. As she hesitates and asks what's going on, he repeats the cue. She finally apologizes and admits she's Squid-chan. He mentions on the radio that he convinced her to share her problem one more time, noting it's hard for her to express her feelings and the boy seems poor at reading others' emotions. He encourages her to express herself here, suggesting the boy might be listening. She looks at him with empty eyes. She begins sharing about her childhood and being introverted, explaining she remained so until she gave up. She describes him never judging her, always complimenting her voice and being kind. Regarding radio, she mentions enjoying hearing people who take time to address others' problems and began imitating that. When in front of the mic, she felt like a different person and it was fun, but never expected someone so close to her to listen, leaving her embarrassed. He wishes he had known earlier. She questions the relationship between him and Haru. He recounts how they met, everything that happened, and how she came to live in their house. She looks stunned, hearing that they live together. He clarifies it's not his apartment but one his parents manage. She stares blankly. He recounts her getting mad at him and what he appreciates about her. She looks at him again, hesitating as everything has come out. She confesses she wants to join the radio club to get closer to him, and admits she's in love. He stares at her in silence. Embarrassed, she starts to pull back, but he takes her hands and shares his own feelings. Outside the door, Hal listens, wide-eyed with surprise. Water gushes out of the faucet as Hal replays Okanoji's juicy confession to Kimishima in her mind. Gently patting her face dry with a towel, she wonders why she's losing sleep over it. At school, students walk toward the building when Okanoji calls out to Kimishima-kun. She hesitantly greets him good morning. After sharing a chuckle, he playfully greets her with the nickname Okanoji. He quickly adds that he'll ditch it if she's not a fan. Blushing, she pleads for him to keep using it, loving the novelty of having a nickname for once. Meanwhile, Hal watches their banter with a mixture of discomfort, pulling a comical face at their antics. As they stroll into their classroom, Taiyu can't resist poking fun at Taniguchi's ear, prompting a snarky response from him. The tension is broken when Taiyu spots Okanoji and immediately checks in on her well-being. Despite her obvious fear, Taiyu offers her a seat and pops some earbuds in her ears. Confusion ensues as he excitedly explains that he heard an amazing song and just had to share it with Taniguchi, who is less than impressed. Turning to Okanoji, Taiyu eagerly asks for her opinion, to which she sheepishly admits it feels rare. Taiyu can't help but smirk at Taniguchi, teasingly asking if he caught that subtle hint. He questions if they are always this close. She feels uncomfortable, but Taiyu agrees, making her even shyer. He chuckles, mentioning she confessed yesterday that she also loves the radio. While removing the earbuds, he mentions her joining the radio club. Hearing this remark, the girl is left heartbroken at the misunderstanding. But he cluelessly asks Okanoji for confirmation. She smiles and confirms. Manaka looks irritated, watching all this. Later, the trio sits together, talking. At the Radio Studies Club, Taiyu laughs at the approved application and shouts, "Time to celebrate." Hal and Okanoji sit side by side when Taiyu abruptly questions why Hal's there. She calmly replies she's a member too, and reminds him of the favors she's done. She flares up, asking if he wants to be alone with Okanoji. He denies, meaning that, wonders why she's mad, and walks away, dragging a board covered with a sheet. He reveals the cover. Make a radio drama. Hal and Okanoji are shocked. He punches a pile of papers, explaining he secretly prepared them, and tells them to read the script. Hal tries to leave, overwhelmed by the work. He catches her, asking why she is leaving as a club member. She snaps that they are incapable of turning his drama into a masterpiece. He replies that he enjoyed writing it, which is why he did it. She suddenly calms and asks him to rewrite and shorten it. She returns to her seat. Taiyu questions if she has lost her mind after his hard work. She asks Okanoji if she can take her time. They both leave for home. While walking, Okanoji tries to start a conversation, telling Hal she's honored to walk home with her. Okanoji shifts the topic to the club room, sensing Hal's unease. Hal apologizes, saying she wasn't spying. Okanoji claims she's fine but admits she struggled to express herself clearly. Hal remains tight-lipped. Okanoji describes the situation as terrible. Hal is left scratching her head. Hal then throws shade at Taiyu, calling him neither a saint nor a decent person. She recounts a disturbing incident involving harassing messages and a bizarre encounter at Radafest, which Taiyu deemed as livening up. Okanoji is left feeling puzzled. Hal spills the beans about Taiyu constantly hitting on Okanoji. She questions if Okanoji noticed all of this, to which Okanoji nods in agreement. Hal opens up about her feelings and restless nights. Okanoji confesses she feels the same way. Hal chuckles, remarking how similar they are. She mentions receiving strange looks from people and lacking someone to confide in. Okanoji bluntly points out that it's because she's head over heels for Taiyu. Hal protests, claiming she has no interest in Taiyu. Okanoji bows apologetically, promising not to get in the way. She bids Hal goodbye, asserting that she won't back down. Hal watches Okanoji leave with a blushing and confused face. The doorbell at Taiyu's house is rudely interrupted by Haru, who has the nerve to ask for help with studies. Taiyu, toothbrush still hanging out of his mouth, opens the door only to shut it in Haru's face. She rings the bell like she's summoning a demon, and he finally lets her in. Haru plops down and shows him the dreaded multiplication table, explaining she has a mountain of homework. As he reluctantly glances at the table, she casually inquires about his test scores. He compliments her grades and boasts about his own. She checks out his impressive transcript and humbly declares she'll follow his lead. He accuses her of teasing him. He launches into a lecture on past tenses and vocabulary. Suddenly, he realizes how attractive she looks and questions whether it's appropriate for her to be in a guy's room. Deciding it's probably fine, given her former idol status, he can't help but stare. Caught in the act, he awkwardly claims he wasn't looking at anything important. She flares up, showing him a chocolate bar and accusing him of eyeing it. She takes a bite, telling him he won't get it. She praises the chocolate while he corrects himself, admitting he wants it. The radio announces the next show, The Lovesick Boy and the Lovesick Girl. She asks about his work so far. He explains and asks her not to interrupt. Suddenly, he notices her diary and tries to grab it. She reads aloud from it something dirty. She playfully teases him. He retorts that's what she gets for snooping through his things. Spotting a storage box under the bed, she pulls out some books and asks if they're his textbooks. He quickly denies it. Grinning, she jokes, "What are these, secret magazines or something?" He tells her to put them back. She opens one, asking for a peek, then agrees he was right. He snatches the book and tells her to go home if she's done studying. She notices the book has spring love notes, life photos, calendars, and limited edition posters. He feels embarrassed watching her go through his notes. She comments that he seemed like such an extrovert at Radafest. She asks if he was truly a die-hard fan of hers. He denies it while she tries to provoke him into confessing. He explains that he can write decent material for someone he barely knows, and it's only for research purposes. He adds that's all, then corrects himself, admitting he really rooted for her as an idol who genuinely loves radio, which is rare. She falls silent. He notes she wanted to hear that. She blushes and apologizes, her face sweating. She reflects on his words and recalls Okanoji telling her she's in love with Taiyu. She suddenly bursts out, declaring that Okanoji was wrong. Her behavior turns erratic as she talks to herself, trying to convince herself she had been mistaken. In an attempt to calm down, she removes her glasses and insists internally that all she ever felt was resentment. But then a memory surfaces. She once said she was grateful to him. She shakes her head, refusing to accept it. Taiyu notices the shift in her demeanor and checks on her. She snaps back at him, confused by his concern. He points out that her face is flushed. She denies anything is wrong and tries to return to her work, but he isn't convinced. After a moment, she admits she isn't feeling like herself. Concerned, he tells her to take a break, pointing out how strange she's acting. Then, without warning, she grabs him gently. He's caught off guard and instinctively resists, confused and alarmed. As he tries to pull away, she asks if he wants to kiss her. The radio broadcaster begins another story from a 14-year-old named Happy Apple-chan. The broadcaster shares the story while they are alone. Haru suddenly pushes him away, irritated by his move. He asks what she just said. She hides behind a pillow, telling him to forget it like he hadn't heard before. She then snaps, hitting him with the pillow. After a pause, she looks at him and pretends to like it. He wonders if she really wants it. He tries to shift the topic to the radio. He looks at her again, questioning her seriousness. He grabs her shoulder and leans in to feel her as the broadcaster shares the girl's first kiss experience. They finally kiss. Meanwhile, the radio is broadcasting a similar experience. But they didn't actually kiss. She fed him chocolate instead, pressing it hard onto his tongue. She laughs at him for thinking she would kiss him. He asks why she did that. She smirks, saying the chocolate is a better kissing partner. She asks if it's sweet. Suddenly, she rests her head on his leg, catching him completely off guard. He lets out a quiet sigh, watching her sleep. Still speechless, his gaze shifts to the chocolate box nearby, and it hits him. That's what got her drunk. He sighs again, calls her to wake up, and tells her to go home if she's done studying. No answer. She's deeply asleep. He tries to pull her by the shoulder. She remains unconscious. Suddenly, his mother enters, asking about her, and says she baked a cake for her. He looks confused. He tries to explain himself. She sternly tells him to let her sleep, saying she must be exhausted. He yells that it's his bed. She glares at him and pulls him out by the ear, ordering him to stay out until she wakes. The door closes. The radio continues the girl's story. Suddenly, Haru gets up, cursing herself. Meanwhile, his mother inquires about what happened. After a hectic day at school, Hal wakes to the sight of a camera aimed at her. Flustered, she tries to compose herself. Later at the club, Hal informs Okanoji and Taiyu about the secret photography. She then asks Okanoji why she's sitting in the corner. Okanoji says she's fine but admits eating outside the classroom feels odd. Hal apologizes for intruding, but Okanoji tells her it's no problem. Taiyu wonders if Hal might be imagining things now that she's no longer an idol. Hal replies that leaving the spotlight doesn't make them powerless, and he could at least act like he cares. Okanoji then adds that Taiyu was once a fan himself. Both look at her, puzzled. Hal states she only asks for his help and wonders why he makes dirty jokes instead of sharing ideas. He thinks she is bad-mouthing him again and suspects all craftsmen behave similarly. He questions if she really doesn't recall. Then he remembers the date and tries to face the situation. She reflects on how perfect her move was, yet now everything is ruined. Both turn away, embarrassed. He questions her about quitting her career while standing before them. He expected a dangerous response but was relieved when it wasn't. He asks if something happened before that caused her to leave her career. She denies it, saying nothing like that ever occurred. He looks confused. Okanoji interrupts, certain that a fan is nearby. Both look at her, puzzled. She points out his hoodie and belongings covered with her promotional items, all labeled Hal Love. Hal asks if she knows who she means. Okanoji nods and glances out the window behind Taiyu, where a masked person stands. The figure runs away, and Taiyu calls for him to stop. Okanoji suggests informing a teacher, and Hal agrees, but Taiyu has a different plan. The scene shifts as Hal counts and begins vlogging while working. She introduces herself and tells viewers this broadcast is an unofficial spin-off, so they decided to air it for them. The class starts discussing the broadcast. Hal asks Taiyu if this has a point. He urges her to continue. She announces the broadcast is open to the public with special seats prepared for die-hard fans. She invites them to head to the broadcast room. Taiyu encourages her to flirt and fool the fans, then tells Okanoji the pen is out of ink. She laughs and describes the plan of a retired idol, Haru Manaka, falling prey to evil forces. She yells as if Taiyu really intends to catch the intruder this way. He tells her to focus on the script. She adds that if the person is an outsider, they wouldn't even be listening. Suddenly, the masked person appears, sitting in a chair holding a Hal Love sticker. Taiyu shouts that he's here, urging everyone to seize the moment. The masked figure hesitates, suspecting a trap. Taiyu confirms it was their plan all along. He knew the fan would appear. Acting fast, he captures the masked intruder, who pleads for mercy. Taiyu says it's gone too far. The masked figure threatens him, warning not to insult Hal or face destruction. Realizing it's serious, Taiyu demands they reveal themselves. The figure removes the mask. It's a girl. Shocked, he stares as she yells she won't forgive him, claiming she's captured his face in her eyes. Hal makes a face at the words beloved sister. The girl quickly apologizes, revealing she's his younger sister. The girl introduces herself as 15-year-old Saki Manaka. She hugs her sister Haru, chuckling. She looks at Taiyu with a strange expression, then urges Hal to ditch school, become a model again, and come back home. Hal pulls her hands away, firmly stating she is not going home, that she doesn't want to become an idol again, and questions how Saki found out about this school. Her phone buzzes. Saki says she interrogated their father and forced him to tell her everything. Hal knows their father is too soft. Saki asks Haru to apologize to Okanoji and Taiyu for causing them trouble. Saki denies responsibility, glaring at him and stating she hates him as he watches their conversation. Okanoji comments that Seki looks just like Hal. Both give her an empty stare. Saki thanks her, saying she seems like a good person. Hal tries to stop her but then flares up, warning Saki that if she causes more trouble, she really will, before Seki cuts her off, accusing Hal of breaking their promise. Tears roll down Saki's cheeks as she yells that Hal just ran away from home. Hal becomes emotional and apologizes, gently placing a hand on Saki's head. She says she can't go back to being an idol. Saki asks why, eyes full of concern. Hal explains idols aren't allowed to date and that she has a boyfriend. Taiyu and Okanoji are astonished. Seki demands to know about the guy, saying she's never heard of him. Hal tries to calm her while Taiyu watches, clueless. On Sunday, Hal excuses herself for being late, calling him darling. He looks at her in disbelief. Okanoji and Saki watch from behind a bench. Seki tells Okanoji something feels off. Okanoji agrees. Later, Okanoji recalls the past, sitting on a bed and stating it's all a lie. That radio holds the key to the future. She calls Hal, telling her she has something important to share. Meanwhile, Saki showers in the bathroom while Hal smells the fragrance of her shampoo. Okanoji sighs in relief, wondering that these two were going out without her knowledge. Hal looks confused by the statement and, with a touch of grief, admits that the whole dating thing was a total miscalculation. Okanoji stays silent for a moment before replying that she understands Hal's situation. Hal asks if she really does. Okanoji confirms, adding that she doesn't want Hal and him getting too intimate either. At present, Okanoji pulls out her telescope. Suddenly, she chuckles, noticing that the two have fully met, and it really looks like they are dating. Seki quickly denies it, stating even friends can meet up like that. She feels embarrassed, as she's never met him outside as just a friend. Local people start commenting, whispering that Hal looks like a celebrity. Hal feels uneasy, sensing that the atmosphere is off. She tells him to hold up. He questions what she wants. She whispers, asking him to be a little more social since Saki might see them. He rudely replies that it's all her plan and asks why he should obey her. Hal flares up at his misbehavior. Saki and Okanoji give them sharp stares. Hal then takes something out of her purse and passes it to him. He looks at it. It's Little Captain's autographed wristband. He tries to take it, but she pulls it back and states that if he cooperates, it's his. She tells him to go out with her today. He immediately grabs her wrist and tells her to come along, promising they'll have a great day. She agrees, and they walk off together. The current scenario unfolds as Haru finds herself on a Fogg's date due to her fib about having a boyfriend. Taiyu is playing along in hopes of securing a signed wristband, much to Saki's disdain, who refuses to entertain the idea. And as for Okanoji, well, they couldn't care less about the charade even if they tried. They both hang around, smiling warmly. Seki remarks that when it comes to movies, they form the foundation of a perfect date. Okanoji agrees, adding that as a couple they should share the same taste in movies. The two begin arguing playfully over which movie to watch, while Seki observes them with a weird, amused expression. Hal leans in and whispers to him, did he forget? He pretends to want to watch Avengers while smiling shyly. She flirts back with a laugh. Seki marks a cross on the movie block. The scene shifts to a restaurant. Hal calls the waitress and orders food. Surprised by the long list, he asks how much she plans to eat. She smiles and says it's her choice. Nearby, Saki and Okanoji watch closely, looking for flaws. Haru smiles awkwardly and invites him to eat together. She playfully tells him to open his mouth and asks if it isn't good. Seki jots down notes, and Okanoji wants to follow. Seki then marks a cross next to cafe. Taiyu watches her and thinks she looks really cute when she's quiet. He glances at her, struggling to control himself. Hal offers to play a game with him, but he declines, mentioning that his stomach feels off. She comments that if she's the only one playing, it won't look normal. Suddenly, he gets excited and announces he's going to show her his ultimate rhythm game technique. She holds the barf bag, confused by his sudden excitement. Seki marks a cross for the arcade as well. The scene shifts as water starts flowing from a nearby sink while he rushes off to the washroom. They both watch, wondering what exactly is going on. At the park, Saki calls Okanoji, asking if their story about the two being lovers isn't just a lie. Okanoji recalls Hal asking for help and tries to convince Saki that it isn't false. They're actually a perfect match. Saki insists that it doesn't look like that at all and tells her to stop, stating that it's pointless. Okanoji pleads with her not to say that. Saki then praises her sister and mentions she'll go back to being an idol. She looks at her checklist, her voice tinged with anger, stating that Hal didn't seem to have any fun at all, and it's all because of him. She glares at Hal and demands to see her smile naturally. Okanoji tries to speak, but Saki warns her not to interfere. Suddenly, some bullies approach Hal and invite her to have tea with them. She replies rudely, stating she doesn't want to drink tea with dirty playboys. They try to grab her, but she slaps one hard and demands they let her go. One bully complains about the slap, but Hal's purse drops, and she points out it's because he grabbed her without warning. As the bully helps gather her things, he finds the wristband and calls it a weird-looking object. He asks if it's for dupes, and Hal warns him not to touch it. Seeing this, Okanoji asks Saki if she should call the police. All flares up, but suddenly Taiyu steps out and looks at the wristband, asking if it's not cool enough. He then tells the bullies to leave her alone. He praises her strength and jokingly calls her a foodie they just can't handle. The bullies ask who he is and where he came from. He chuckles and replies that he is her one-day boyfriend with a tummy ache. They don't quite catch that last part, but he shrugs it off and tells them to stop bothering her, calling her his girlfriend. Hal is shocked to hear him say that. The bullies start judging him as her boyfriend and comment that she has a fiery personality as well as questionable taste in men. She flares up at the insult while he tells her to stay calm. Then he bows apologetically for causing trouble, but suddenly gets hit by one of the bullies with full force. Taiyu drops to the ground. The bully mocks him for his earlier remark as he truly annoys him. People begin to panic. The bully flings the wristband at his face and walk away, reminding her to break up with him. She steps closer to check on him, but he's curious if they have left. He begins to shout at the bullies and accuses them of hitting him. He then expresses concern for her. She smiles and touches his shoulder, telling him not to move. She begins to wipe his bleeding nose. He gazes at her in amazement. She then expresses gratitude for him protecting her. He refuses to accept her thanks, but she tells him to drop the subject. He offers her the wristband, but she refuses to accept it and returns it to him. He looks at her, stunned, and asks if it's real. She nods and he starts to giggle and bounce with joy. She wonders if Saki witnessed them, but he dismisses it by calling her his girlfriend. She flushes deeply at his words. She then invites him to hang out at the final spot. They arrive there, and she shares her wish to visit the place. They both begin to have fun and question why they didn't come there first. Saki and Okanoji watch them in surprise. Hal tells him about the location while gesturing toward the staff. Okanoji asks if she truly wants her to return. She answers affirmatively. Saki pauses, then laughs, noting that she has never seen her so cheerful. She still dislikes him, but his behavior made her reconsider. Okanoji attempts to speak for him. She glares at Okanoji, who quickly adds that she's saying it objectively. Saki recalls her sister's claim about having a boyfriend. Though she initially thought it was a lie, she decides to support her if it truly makes her happy. At the school, Okanoji asks if these are club activities for summer. He confirms and asks if she wants to contribute something to it. She glances at it and makes a rude excuse. He questions her attitude, but she insists she is fine and tells him not to call her Okanoji. He agrees, and soon she becomes startled as he calls her Meika, startling her. She wonders why her heart feels out of control. She remembers Saki cheering for them and her enthusiasm. She also recalls how, when she later mentioned the promise, Saki seemed indifferent and instead talked about her audition to become an idol, following in Haru's footsteps. Though she failed, she's still determined to keep her promise, even if her sister broke it. In the present, Okanoji wonders if it was all just a setup to get her help in winning over Kimishima-kun. She intercepts Taiyu just before he hands in the paper. After a brief moment of contemplation, she awkwardly points at the paper to shift gears. With a sudden blush, she confesses her love, not for him, but for the radio once again. At Taiyu's dining table, Hal compliments the meal, and he teases her for eating at his place. His mother steps in, saying she invited her and tells her to come over any time. His father jokes that his son brought home a wife. They both feel flustered. He mocks his father, suggesting he might be drunk, causing her cheeks to turn red. Outside her door, she warns him not to even consider what his father said. He tells her to quiet down and informs her about the summer activities. He questions the reason for Okanoji's behavior. She thinks she should apologize to her for the date. She then compliments the schedule, and he confirms it. She mentions that they'll be doing something totally different from it. He tries to explain that he only noted the training camp. Suddenly, his gaze shifts to her body, and he tries to avert it, but gets surprised by her remark. She found the radio drama awards. He reads the reward amount on it. She tells him that his radio drama won't be able to win the prize. At school, they show it to their sensei for approval. Taiyu gets excited at her admitting it. Okanoji ponders. They all came together with slight awkwardness, as summer was only beginning. Later, Taiyu's father asks if they've forgotten anything. Upon arrival, Hal chuckles in amazement. Taiyu explains it's a guest house run by his relatives. His aunt greets them with a smile, noting how much he's grown. Meanwhile, Okanoji and Saki explore the house. Saki jumps onto a bed, prompting Taiyu to tell her not to play around. Curious, he asks Hal why Saki is there. Hal explains. Saki, meanwhile, wonders how to turn Taiyu into a good man for her sister. The scene shifts where Taiyu is briefing about the radio drama. He writes the steps. He then chuckles, ordering them to pursue his revised script for the drama. Hal grabs him by his collar, telling him that it is too long. Meanwhile, Okanoji gives her advice, convinced that a shorter drama is better. She tells them to imagine every possible scene first. Hal tries to confirm her statement by mentioning her understanding. Suddenly, Okanoji apologizes, but they assure her it's fine. Taiyu praises her for her skills on recording and editing. She replies that she'll do her best. He then asks Hal if she has any plans. She admits she doesn't. With a look of frustration, he tells her to start thinking. Saki interrupts and asks for permission to speak, and tells him to stop blaming her sister. He denies while Hal compliments her. Haru asks about the story type. She tells her that it's about a former idol who meets a listener. Taiyu wonders if he has heard something like this. Saki snatches the script from her sister, prompting Taiyu to scold them for their behavior. She reads a line aloud that eerily mirrors their current situation. Suddenly, Hal flares up, rejecting the script. She wrote it herself. Okanoji points out they only have blank sheets left. Taiyu then mentions a backup script he nearly tossed, revealing it's a version of Romeo and Juliet. However, if they swap the characters' genders, it turns into a comedy. He asks if it's a bad idea. Both girls shout at him for not bringing it up sooner. He quickly assigns roles, and everyone begins preparing for the play. Hal mentions that nothing beats a classic. Okanoji denies it. As Saki and Taiyu argue over prop placement, Hal suddenly decides to apologize for their date. Okanoji, unsure how to respond, reluctantly tells him it was fine. Trying to decipher her true feelings, Hal boldly asks if she really loves him. Blushing, Okanoji agrees and turns the question back on him. Sighing, she struggles to express her emotions. Hal performs a scene from the script in the pool, dramatically calling Taiyu her Romiko. Wrapped in a towel, she's met with praise from Okanoji and Saki for her performance. Hal reflects on Taiyu's writing, wondering if reversing the roles might make things too complicated. Okanoji assures her it'll just make it more fun. Before Hal can say more, Saki splashes her with water and bluntly asks what she likes about Taiyu. Hal tries to brush it off, but Saki presses harder. When Hal doesn't answer, Saki taunts her, saying they're not convincing as lovers. Frustrated, Hal blurts out that it's because Taiyu loves radio. Saki scoffs. Is that all? Okanoji, fed up, tries to stop them. Saki then mocks Hal again, saying it must be her turn now because who else would like Taiyu? Blushing, Okanoji quietly says it's his kindness. Both girls stare at her. Saki again asks Hal, who finally says it's because he helps her study. Water splashes again as Okanoji snaps, saying that doesn't mean they're dating. Angry, Hal storms off. Okanoji mumbles that he even gave her a nickname. Later on the terrace, Taiyu is startled by Hal's voice. She asks about their progress. He stares at her and she asks why. He answers vaguely, questioning his own feelings. She asks if he's listening to Tangled Moon again, saying there's something mysterious about listening to the radio at full volume. Taiyu says it's fine as long as the Wi-Fi holds, then teases her about her radio taste. She snaps and throws something at him. He taunts her again, and she recalls Okanoji asking about her feelings. Hal hesitantly asks if he could ever fall for a girl who loves the radio. He pauses, then warns her not to lean too far. She tries to apologize but stumbles, and he catches her hand. Suddenly, the terrace railing gives way. They both fall. From a distance, Okanoji and Saki see them fall. On the ground, Hal holds the unconscious Taiyu in her lap. He faintly wonders if she'd fall for a guy who loves the radio too, recalling how people often called it old-fashioned until he met her. Fireworks burst overhead, lighting the night. Hall stares down at him, remembering them playing with sparklers. She softly asks if he's awake. Half conscious, Taiyu mumbles about her lap feeling like a pillow. Hall almost slaps him but stops, feeling sorry for him, and lets him rest. As he lies there, he murmurs that she's the only one who stirs his heart this way. Hall looks at him stunned. Okanoji rushes over and checks on Taiyu just as he's muttering a confession to Hall. The scene shifts. Taiyu, now recovered, chuckles awkwardly as he tries to rejoin the group. He coughs and asks what's going on. Seiki bluntly tells him he's banned from entering, which shocks him. She declares Hal's purity must be protected and explains that's why she chose the corner bed, then tells him to move. Hal, lying on the bed, admits she feels a bit embarrassed. Taiyu turns to Saki and asks how Hal is doing. Instead of answering, Saki accuses him of doing something to her. Flustered, Taiyu changes the subject and asks about Okanoji. Saki accuses him of having an affair with her, which he yells at her for, calling it a ridiculous claim. The scene shifts to Okanoji, who is recording a broadcast about their trip. She stops when Taiyu enters and asks if she's done. Ignoring her earlier remarks, he points out that although she wasn't posting before, she's been consistent lately. She explains it's because the recordings are just for him. Surprised, he says it's fine, he'd like to listen. She recalls his confession to Hal, then he quietly asks her to go for a walk. As they walk, Okanoji starts getting scared. Taiyu jokes about seeing a face in a tree, and she hits him in frustration when he admits he was joking. He notes she doesn't look well, and she wonders why he always tries to cheer her up, and why he looks at her that way. He suggests they head back, but she lingers, thinking maybe it's all because he loves the radio. Curious, she asks if he has any dreams. She quickly apologizes for prying. He admits he hasn't thought about it much, maybe becoming a public servant. She suggests something radio-related. He says it's not that simple, then asks about her dreams. She shyly says she wants a job where she can talk on the radio. Taiyu asks if she wants to become a radio personality. She thinks to herself how much she wishes to be with him. Encouraging her, Taiyu tells her to go for it. She warns him not to act that way, she might get the wrong idea. Suddenly she kisses him. The scene cuts. Later, a girl asks Taiyu if they're really going through with it. He asks if that's a problem. She recalls when he confessed his love for radio, saying she wants others to feel the same way. He agrees. She tells him to focus. He's now officially the scriptwriter. Taiyu turns on the radio, comforted by the familiar voices that always seem to calm him, even when he's overwhelmed. He smirks, remembering how close Okanoji had been recently, how he sees her brushing her teeth every morning, something so ordinary, yet oddly intimate. Motivated, he decides to better himself. He reflects on how he laughs at the radio one day and forgets the jokes the next, yet the feeling lingers. Clutching his blanket, he reminds himself that this is what he wanted all along. His thoughts return to the kiss, how Okanoji had grown flustered afterward, rushing it off with an excuse about being tired. He can't help but wonder why she kissed him at all. A bespectacled dude, sitting nearby, casually suggests it might be love. Taiyu chokes in surprise and asks who loves who. The lad deflects, pointing to something in a book. Taiyu answers mechanically but demands an actual response. He calmly says that Okanoji is in love with him. Taiyu pretends not to be fazed, but when his friend adds that he missed the script submission deadline, Taiyu freezes. Grabbing his glass, Taiyu asks how he explained it. He says he sent an apology. Hal responded that she was too busy, while Okanoji simply replied with a sticker that said it was okay. Then his friend congratulates him, saying he always wanted a girlfriend who loves radio. Taiyu, sweating and confused, insists they're not dating and that it was just a kiss. He denies the idea aloud, but doubt starts creeping in. He punches his pillow in frustration, realizing he needs to confront the situation. He starts to think through what to say but hesitates. His friend advises him to follow his own feelings, warning that avoiding the truth will only end in hurt. Taiyu, irritated, asks where all this wisdom comes from. His buddy shows him an old photo. Taiyu, still annoyed, asks where he even got it. His friend smirks, threatening to show up at school if he doesn't take things seriously. Later, Taiyu sits by the pool, waiting for Hal. When she arrives, she explains that her class just ended and playfully accuses him of watching girls in swimsuits. He tells her he was waiting for her, and she teases him, but he quickly fires back. Their gazes meet for a moment before they both look away. Then another girl steps out of the water, wringing her hair. Taiyu recognizes her as Sumiraji. She tells him to call her a Jiha, saying that since they're dating now, he shouldn't be so formal. Placing a hand on his shoulder, she warns him not to cheat and walks off with a smirk, leaving Taiyu even more bewildered.